Now look at various strategic alternatives. So there are many strategies that an organization can follow to attain its objective, but the most famous one are given by Gluck and Josh, and the other one is given by Michael Porter. Now first we look at Gluck and Josh generic strategies. Now these strategies are given by Gluck and Josh in 1984, and three strategies were given by them. These were expansion, the second one is retrenchment, and the other is stability. Now, making few modifications in these strategies, four strategies have been suggested by Hitt and others in 1982 and Pierce and others in 1987. So, the four grand strategies we'll study are stability, internal growth, external growth, and retrenchment. The first strategy is stability. The stability, as the name suggests, the company tries to maintain the current business definition. That is, the company maintains the same portfolio. There is no change in the portfolio of the organization. The company does not add any new business, nor does it sell off any existing business. The portfolio of the company remains same. It tries to sell the same product in the same market and serve the same customer. The level of operations of the entity also remains same. The company focuses on the same interest and strength. It follows the same objectives and goal. The only changes that the company do is at the functional level. The company tries to make the optimum utilization of its limited resources. It tries to do the same activities at less cost, in less time, and in a more better manner, more effectively and efficiently. So various characteristics of stability strategy are: the company makes only few functional changes. So the changes that the company makes are only at the functional level. Remember, there is no change in the products. There is no change in the market in which the company serves. The company continues to serve the same customers in the same market segment. The portfolio of the product, the number of the product that the company makes does not change at all. The only changes are done at the functional level, where the company tries to do the same activities in a more better manner. This is not a do nothing strategy. The company is doing something. The company has not shut down all its operation. The company is just focusing on the same level of activities. So the better phrase for this strategy is do nothing new, because the company is not doing anything new. The company is not adding any new products to the portfolio, nor the company is removing any product from the portfolio. The company is not changing anything. The company is focusing on the same level of products and same level of efforts. There is the focus on incremental improvement. As I already told you, the company is focusing on functional performance. The company is trying to improve the functional performance. The company is pursuing the same objectives and goal. The company adjusts the level of improvement. The company adjusts the level of improvement equivalent proportion every year. So the company tries to improve at the same pace every year. Plus, the company also keeps into account the changes going on in the environment. The company tracks whatever developments are going on in the environment and tries to judge whether the current strategy, the stability strategy, continues to make sense. Because if the environment changes, the company might have to redefine its portfolio and abandon the stability strategy. So the company, as any other company, tries to check its environment time to time. Now, the next strategy is growth strategy. Now, growth can be undertaken in two ways. It can be either internal growth or it can be either external growth. Now, internal growth or external growth involves redefinition of business. That is, the portfolio of the company changes. So, if the company is presently into 3 products, if the company adds 4th product or 4th business in its portfolio, that is known as growth, because growth always means addition. Growth requires more investment. The company has to take risk. Stability strategy is less risky strategy because the company is focusing on same level of activity. It is following the same path. It is not changing anything. But growth requires you to take some new path. It requires you to try new product, new market, and therefore it is risky strategy, and it involves large amount of investment too. But on the companies which requires huge amount of profits, if they require high level of growth, they have to go for this strategy and take certain amount of risk. Now, what is internal growth and external growth? So if the company adds the new business to the portfolio by its own, by investing its own resources, by using their own experience and ideas. That is known as internal growth. They are not taking help of any external entity. This takes time because company is, building everything from scratch. And what is external expansion? In external expansion or external growth, the company takes help of external entities. This is quick way of growing because herein the company opt for acquisitions, mergers, or consolidation with the existing established organization. So first we look at external expansion. As I already told you, herein you take help of the external entity. You take the help of another business that is already established. So what is acquisition? In acquisition, the company acquires the existing entity, and the effect of acquisition is that, so as we know that Flipkart acquired Myntra. So Flipkart and Myntra both are into online business. When Flipkart acquired Myntra, the effect is that Myntra, the existence of Myntra as a business entity is not end. Myntra continues to remain in existence, but the only change that an acquisition do is at the management level. That is, the management of Myntra will change. The old managers will leave the organization. The old BOD will leave the organization. And the owners and managers of Flipkart will now decide everything for Myntra. Then later on, Walmart acquired Flipkart. So we see that the existence of Flipkart is still there. Flipkart has not lost its existence. But as I already told you, acquisition only makes changes at the managerial level. The controlling entity of the acquired entity changes. So that is what acquisition is. What is merger? In merger and consolidation, we look together. So merger is a type of the external expansion wherein the merged entity loses its existence. So we can take the example, supposingly there is company A and there is another company B. When company B merges into company A, what happens is that B company loses its existence. After merger, there would be no company known as B company. Only one company, that is A company, will be there in existence. This is known as merger. Now, what is consolidation? Consolidation is also a type of merger only, but herein what happens is that, so we'll take the example of Vodafone and Idea. So Vodafone and Idea were previously two separate entities, but after consolidation, what will happen? These two entities will merge together and form a new entity known as Vodafone Idea, and the existence of the individual entity will be over. So there would be no company known as Vodafone or Idea now, but there would be only one company known as Vodafone Idea, which is the case of consolidation. Now the last one is joint venture. So joint venture is also a type of combination which is done on contract basis. Herein the two entities come together to work to achieve certain objectives for certain duration. And after achieving that objective, the entities again separate and work as an individual entity. This we saw in case of Hero Honda. Hero Honda entered into contract and worked for years together, sharing the necessary resources and helping each other for years. But now we see that the JV has come to an end and Hero and Honda are now operating as a separate entities. The next is internal growth. So internal growth, the company does not take help of any other corporation. It invests by its own and build from scratch. It tries to innovate new product, enter into new market by its own. Herein, three strategies are there for internal growth. The first one is market penetration, second market development, and the third is product development. The three strategies are basically used by the organization. So with the help of three strategies, company tries to develop new product, enter new market, and produce new technology to capture new markets. Now, as we already told you, internal growth or any type of growth involves redefinition of business. The scope of business increases because you are entering into a new product or new market. So this level of business, the level of activities increases. This is considered as a very famous and promising strategy. And if you follow this strategy, you have to take risk. You may have to travel to those paths which you haven't tried yet. And diversification is also part of growth strategy. and it also includes acquisition and mergers. Now, the last strategy is retrenchment. Retrenchment is opposite of growth. So in growth, you add something to your portfolio and the level of activity increases. But in retrenchment, we remove existing product or markets from our portfolio, and therefore the level of activity reduces. So it is nothing but scaling down the level of scope of your operation. The company tries to withdraw some of the product from the portfolio. The company tries to withdraw from some of the markets which are not giving it enough profit. In this, company also try to reduce the cost. The company try to reduce the level of operation. It may divest some of its unit. Now, the very obvious reason for these kind of reduction in the activities that the company may not be having enough profits to run the particular product or market. The particular product or market may not be performing up to the level of expectation, and therefore the company may decide to curtail down or reduce that product from the portfolio. Now, there are two types of retrenchment as pointed out by Gluck and Josh in 1984. Internal retrenchment and external retrenchment. Internal retrenchment is also known as turnaround strategy, whereas external retrenchment involves two strategies. One is divestiture and the other is liquidation. Please remember, internal retrenchment is turnaround. External retrenchment could be divestment or it could be retrenchment, liquidation. Now, internal retrenchment is the first step of retrenchment. In this, company tries to make something. Company tries to make certain changes in the internal level, and thereby tries to turn around the position of the entity. Supposingly, one particular product of the company is not performing well, so the company will not decide to shut down the product at the first instance. The company will try to make certain changes in order to turn around the position of this product. The company will try to reduce the expenses that goes on in this product. The company will try to introduce some new advertisements, some new features of this product, so that the product somehow manages to run in the market. So all those efforts that the company takes on its own before taking the hard decision of shutting down this manufacturing of this product is known as turnaround. So turnaround is the step that is taken. In the first instance, the company tries to reduce the cost. The company tries to increase the revenue. The company tries to sell off the obsolete asset. The company tries to reorganize its product, make certain changes in product, make certain changes in advertisements, and tries to work with greater level of efficiency. All this is done to turn around the condition, that is to turn the loss-making product into the profit-making product. So all these are the efforts made by company to turn the loss-making product to the profit-making product. If turnaround is successful, then the company can continue to make the product. But if turnaround is not successful, all the efforts that the company made are not successful and still the product is making losses, then the company may decide to quit that product. So this was case with Nestle. As we know that Nestle's most famous product is Nestle Maggi, which is 2-minute noodles. But I don't know how many of you know that, but Nestle was also selling the chocolate drink with the name of Milo in Indian market. And this Milo was competing with Bournvita and Horlicks in Indian market. But somehow Milo was not successful in Indian market. Nestle tried turnaround strategy for Milo. It tried to make certain changes in the product appearance. The packaging was changed. Lots of gifts were offered to the customer while purchasing this product. But everything was in vain. It could not stand against the competition given by Bournvita and Horlicks, and therefore, because the turnaround efforts were not successful, Nestle decided to divest this product. So divestment is the strategy when you try to shut down a particular product, a particular market, a particular unit. That is, you are not quitting the business altogether. You are not shutting down all the operations. But what you will do in divestment is you will shut down a portion of your business. So when you shut down a portion of your business, when you quit a particular markets, when you quit particular unit, so that is known as divestment, as was done by Nestle for Milo. It stopped selling Milo in Indian market. And what is liquidation? Liquidation is a very harsh strategy wherein the company goes for shutting down all its operation. The company closes down permanently. That is known as liquidation. So the first step is turnaround, when the company tries to change its fate by making few changes in the internally. Then is divestment, and finally comes liquidation. Now, there are various characteristics of this retrenchment strategy. This involves redefinition of business. The portfolio of the product definitely changes. The portfolio of the product previously the company has would not be same, because the company is trying to close down some of its product. It reduces the level of activity in retrenchment. Now, this is not a bad strategy. Sometimes it is considered that retrenchment is bad because this shows that company is not successful, the product are not successful, the company's decisions are wrong. But see, this is not a bad strategy. Instead of investing in the loss making product, it is better to shut down. So it is not bad. If you shut down some of your product at the right time, it saves the organization limited resources. It reduces the harmful effect of the non-performing product on the other business of the portfolio. So it is not bad. And now there are 5 steps for retrenchment, as they say. So in the first step, company tries to do turnaround, wherein the company tries to reduce the unnecessary expenditure which does not give benefit immediately. So company will try to cut down the capital and revenue expenditure. The company will try to reduce the advertisement expenditure. The company will curtail down the perquisites which are given to the executives. Employee welfare subsidies will be stopped. All the community development projects will be stopped because the company is not having enough profits. That's why the company is trying to reduce the expenditure and thereby manage to run the operation. And the second stage, the company will try to reduce those expenditure which may impact its level of operation. So the company will try to curtail down the level of inventory that it has. The employees, some of the employees would be retrenched. Dividend, the company will stop paying dividend to its shareholder, interest on the deposits. So all this can cause legal consequences for the organization. So if these 2 steps are successful, then company will be into the profits because it has reduced the expenditure. So the company will be into profits. And if these steps are not successful, the company will go to the third stage. The company will try to withdraw from some markets which are not giving enough profits. The company will try to close some brands and some product size. And in the fourth stage, even if after the third stage also company is not into profits, the company will later on go to the fourth stage, when the company will close down some of its factories. Some manufacturing locations will be shut down altogether, as Ford has done. Ford has shut down its Indian operations altogether. Some product divisions would be closed down. The company will go for outsourcing instead of manufacturing everything by itself. The company may outsource its production or marketing activities to the external entities. And this is the last step. The last step that the company will take is to go for liquidation, which is known as corporate growth, when all the activities of the companies are shut down permanently. So the first 2 steps herein are nothing but turnaround, wherein the company is not selling off anything but is making few internal changes, reducing the level of expenditure. The third and fourth stage points out divestment, wherein a portion of the business unit is closed down, and the last step is divestment. The last stage herein is liquidation. Sorry, the last or the fifth stage points out liquidation, where the entire operations of the business are closed down. And there is also one strategy pointed out by Gluck and Josh only, which is combination. So it is said that all these strategies which we have discussed, that is, the stability, growth, or retrenchment, the 3 strategies are not mutually exclusive. They can be used in combination. So supposingly the company has 4 business in its portfolio. So the company may decide that it will opt for stability for the business A. It may opt for growth for business B, and it may opt for retrenchment for business C. So that way company may choose combination of strategies for different business in the portfolio. So that is what combination strategy means, using multiple strategies at the same time. Now we'll look at Porter's generic strategy. These strategies were given by Michael Porter in 1985 in his book Comparative Advantage, Creating and Sustaining Superior Performance. Please note this name of the book and the year in which Michael Porter gave these strategies. So there are three generic strategies given by Michael Porter. The first one is cost leadership, which is also known as no frills. Then the second one is differentiation, wherein the company tries to create something unique which is valued by your customers. You create desirable products and services for your customer in a unique way. And the third one is focus, where the company tries to serve a small niche market. So the three strategies can also be shown with the help of this diagram. You can see this. Now we'll look at the three strategies one by one. The first strategy is cost leadership. Herein in this strategy, the company tries to attract the cost conscious or the price sensitive buyers, those buyers for whom price is the first thing that they notice while buy the product, and they do not care much about quality or brand. So the company tries to provide the product at the lowest price in the target market, or the company tries to provide the lowest price to the value ratio. That is, the company tries to provide more value to the customers than provided by its competitors at less price compared to its competitors. So in this way, the company, by offering the product at the lowest price in the market, attracts large number of customers. This strategy was followed by Jio. The company tries to sell in bulk and thereby tries to achieve the high level of profitability and high return on the investment. This also deter the competitors, because it may not be possible for the competitors to reduce the price to the same extent as that of the cost leader firm, and thereby the company is also able to remove its competitors from the market and achieve a kind of monopoly in the market. So this was the same thing as which was done by Jio initially. Now there are three approaches in which you can achieve cost leadership. In the first stage, in the first approach, you will try to get the maximum utilization of your available resources. That is, you'll try to use your plant, machinery, and the other resources to the maximum level. In manufacturing sector, this means that the company will make high volume of production. The company will try to produce in bulk. The effect would be that the company's fixed cost will be spread over large number of the units, and because of that, the per unit cost of the company would be low. That is, we can say that the company is trying to achieve economies of scale and take advantage of the experience that the company has accumulated over the years. So by using its experience, company is trying to produce in bulk, reducing the per unit cost and trying to sell at the price which is much less than its competitor. The second way in which the company can achieve cost leadership is to reduce all the direct and indirect cost that goes on into production of the product. The company will not go for customization, but the company will produce the standardized product, the same product it will offer to all the customer, not caring much about the differentiated needs of the customer. The company will offer only the basic standardized product. The company will not offer any extra services. The product of the company would be no frill product, no extra services offered. The level of personalization of the company's product will be very less, because the company is offering same product to all. So that is by reducing the expenses that goes on in innovation for manufacturing customization product. The company can reduce its expenditure by making the same product for all. The third way in which the company can go for reduction in cost is by controlling all the value chain, controlling the entire value chain. So value chain is nothing but the chain of activities that takes place in order to produce the product which is valued by the customer. So in this chain, which is also known as supply chain, there are a number of parties. So there are suppliers, there is the company that is into manufacturing, there are distributors also. So if the company takes any product from the supplier, it has to pay the cost. If it takes services of distributors such as retailers and wholesalers, the company have to pay the cost. And in this, company is trying to control its suppliers and distributors and forcing them to reduce the cost at which they are providing services to the company. So that is what it is meant by controlling the value chain, controlling all the groups that are the part of value chain and forcing them to reduce the cost at which services are provided. Now, this is done by Walmart. Walmart tries to squeeze its suppliers. It enters into contract with the suppliers and force them to reduce the cost at which they are providing raw materials, and similarly they force their distributors to reduce the commission at which they are distributing the products. So that is what is done by Walmart. Now, what is the risk in pursuing the cost leadership strategies? That your competitors may copy this strategy, and they may also go for cost reduction and sell at the same price at which you are producing or you are selling, and thereby your cost leadership advantage will be gone. So if you want to maintain this advantage, if you want to consistently sell at the low cost compared to your competitor, you may opt for Japanese philosophy, that is Kaizen. Kaizen is nothing but continuous improvement process. The company have to improve continuously and try to reduce the expenditure year by year. And that way it can ensure that its cost leadership is maintained for years to come. So remember the three approaches in which the company can be a cost leader. Now, the second strategy is differentiation. Differentiation is a strategy which is targeted for not so price sensitive customer. That means the customer segment to which the company is targeting this strategy focuses more on quality, focuses more on brand name and uniqueness of the product and not on price. So when the market of the company is saturated and the customer's needs are very specific, the customer wants something unique and specific to their needs, the company can offer differentiation. For this, company must have unique resources and capabilities. The company must have the capability to innovate something new, invest in research and development, and thereby try to create a product which is able to satisfy the needs of the customer and the products which are difficult for the competitors to copy. So if the company is successful in creating that kind of differentiation, the company can charge an extra price from their customer, that is, sell its product at the premium prices, because the company is offering something unique which is not available to the customers in the competitor's product, and therefore the company can charge extra price for providing that uniqueness in its product. The revenue per unit of the company increases. Also, the company has a loyal group of customers which are attracted to that uniqueness and will buy the company's product no matter what. Differentiation thus adds the profit of the company. It is only when the company is able to create the product and it is priced in a way that outweighs all the expenditure that the company has incurred in manufacturing that product. So if the cost price advantage is in favor of the company, then and then only differentiation would be successful. Now, this strategy has been adopted by Apple. We know that Apple has created a successful brand image in the market for its iPhones, and it is charging heavily for its product. Mercedes-Benz, which is considered as the most expensive car, has same level of branding and uniqueness in its product, and same was true for Cafe Coffee Day. Sorry. Similarly, for Nike is having a very good image in sports clothing and shoes. So that is all about differentiation strategy. Now, this strategy is not apt for the smaller companies. It is only for the big companies that have surplus resources, surplus finances to invest in research and development and come out with something unique. Now, things that you should keep in mind to be successful in differentiation strategy is that you have to invest in high quality research and development, innovation. If you want to innovate something new, definitely expenditure in R&D is must. The company must be able to come up with those products and services which are valuable in the eyes of customer. Then and then only you will be able to charge premium prices. Company have to create a brand name in the market, because only if the company has good brand name, then and then only the customers will be ready to buy that at extra price. So marketing of the product plays a very important role in differentiation strategy. The company have to market its product in a way that the customers consider its product to be unique compared to its competitors. So that kind of differentiation has to be created in the minds of customer. And the company have to continuously go for development. The development process is to be continuous for the company that have opted for a differentiation strategy. Every now and then company has to come up with new product to stay fresh in the market. So differentiation is not a one-time activity. It is a continuous process. And the last strategy given by Michael Porter is focus strategy. Now this strategy is also known as niche strategy. In this strategy, company produces the product or services for a small group of customers, the customers whose demands are unique compared to the entire market. So company focuses on that small category of customer. The company produces some unique product for them and tries to create a loyal small group of customers. And that way, company create those products and services which are difficult for its competitors to copy in the small segment. Now, in focus strategy, also company can opt for cost leadership or differentiation. If company follows focus cost leadership, it is also known as cost focus. Herein, in cost focus, company tries to manufacture its product at the lowest cost in the niche market. So the company is not producing the product at the lowest cost in the entire market, but the company is trying to produce the product at the lowest cost in the niche market. So that is cost focus. Similarly, the company can go for differentiation focus, wherein the company will try to create the unique product in the niche market. So in differentiation focus, company tries to create a competitive advantage through differentiation in the small segment, that is niche market. So when you don't focus on the entire market, but you focus only on the small segment, that strategy is known as focus strategy. Now let us look at the environmental influences of business. Now this is a very simple answer and you can just give a brief read to it. We'll just quickly look at the points given in this answer. Now, it is said that environment of the business comprises of all those factors which are external factors, and these factors can have direct or indirect impact on the functioning of business. So that is very clear. The business environment impacts the working of any business organization. Now, businesses are very important for any country because business organization gives their contribution in the economic growth of the country. They generate employment opportunities. They also provide various types of goods and services which satisfies the human needs in the society. But then business organization cannot survive in vacuum. No business organization can survive without interaction with its environment. The business constantly interacts with its external and internal environment. Now, the external environment provides various opportunities which can help the business organization to survive for long run and achieve huge amount of profits. And the external environment can also be source of various threats which can hamper the working and growth of any organization. Now, there are also internal factors which provides a strength or weakness to the organization. Internal factors are something which is inside the business organization, and external factors are something which are outside the business organization. So any managers will have to evaluate these factors without taking important decisions. It is said that the people who work at the top, who make policies for the entire organization, are mostly concerned with external environment, and the middle and the lower level managers are mostly concerned with internal environment. Please remember this line. MCQ may come from this. The top management is concerned with external and the lower and middle level management are concerned with internal environment. Now, there are various definitions of the business environment. You should just give it a brief read. We'll just read this definition because this may come in MCQ. According to Bayford Wheeler, remember his name, according to him, the environment is only external environment. So total of all the things which are external to the business firm and which affect the organization and its operation are considered as business environment. All factors which are external and which affect the operations are known as business environment. Just remember his definition. Now, as we know that there are a number of factors in our environment. This includes our suppliers, customers, competitors, government, bank, economic condition, market conditions, and variety of these things. Now, these factors influences the working of our environment, though they are outside our entities, but they impact the working of our environment. For example, if any government changes income tax rate while making some adjustments in budget, so this government announcement of changes in income tax rate will definitely impact the working of the organization. because increase in income tax rate reduces the customer purchasing power, and therefore they reduce their purchases, they reduce the quantity that the customers are purchasing, and thereby the company have to increase its prices in order to maintain the same level of price, same level of profits, right? So some adjustment are definitely to be made by any business organization whenever there are changes in the environment of the organization. Now, what is the importance of studying environment? Business environment studying help the business in variety of the ways. It helps the organization to develop the strategies, plans which will help it to achieve the objectives. It helps the business organization to prepare the action plan which will help the business organization to effectively adapt with the environment, to change according to the environment. As studying the business environment also help the business organization to know what would be the impact of social changes, national changes, global changes on the stability of the business. It will help the organization to study what competitors are doing, what are their strategies, and thereafter business can frame its own strategies to counter the measures taken by the competitors. It also helps the business to remain up to date and dynamic in its working. So these all are the importance of environmental study. Now there are two types of the business environment, as we already discussed: external and internal environment. So external environment are all those factors which are outside the business organization. And this includes your shareholders, your competitors, customers, government, and technology. And now majority of external factors are uncontrollable. So external environment is known as uncontrollable environment. And whenever it changes, business organization has no choice but to adapt. Again, external environment can be subdivided into two parts. It can be subdivided into micro and macro environment. Now, this is these are the example of micro environment, and this is the example of macro environment. So what is micro environment? So micro environment is basically that environment which is close to the business organization. It is also known as immediate environment because it is very close to the business organization. By that, we mean that the micro environmental factors interact with the business organization on almost a daily basis. They change very quickly and they impact the working of the business organization immediately. So, and also you should remember that micro environment of each and every firm in the industry is different. So micro environment of the companies into the same industry are different. So even if you are working in same industry, your micro environment and your competitors' micro environment could be different. So micro environment includes all those players whose decisions and actions have direct impact on the working of the organization. So there is immediate and direct impact of micro environment on the working of the business organization. Now, the various constituents of micro environment are suppliers. So suppliers are all those entities which supply us various things that we require for our working, and that may be finance, that may be raw material, fuel, power, and other factors of production. For the smooth running of any business organization, it is important that all those supplies are available at the right cost, right time, and in right quantity to the entity. And therefore, business have to analyze the policies of its suppliers as to whether they are planning to rise the cost of the inputs. Because if suppliers do so, if supplier increases the prices of raw materials, it will impact the sales volume and profitability of the business organization. And also, if there is scarcity of inputs in the market, it will delay the production schedule of entity. Therefore, it is important for the business to purchase the supplies from more than one supplier and not to remain, more dependent on only one supplier. Now, customers are those entities who buy the products and services of any entity, and they are very important part of micro environment. Your customers are considered as king of the market. And if you want to survive for long term, it is important to keep your customers satisfied. There are a variety of customers that any business could have. They could be households customer who purchase the materials for their own household, for the household consumption. There can be producers, retailers, government, or foreign buyers. So all these are variety of buyers who purchase material for their own requirement. Marketing intermediaries. Now, there are a variety of intermediaries which help any organization to sell and distribute its product to the customers. These intermediaries includes distributors, such as transport firm who carry our raw material, who carry our goods from one place to the another place. Service agencies such as media firm who help us to advertise and promote our product before the customer. Financial intermediaries such as banks and insurance companies who arranges required amount of finance for our smooth working. So all these entities help us in production, marketing, and insurance of the goods against variety of risk that any business have. It is important for the business to maintain good and healthy relation with all these intermediaries for the smooth working in the firm. Competitors, so they are those entities which compete with our firm. They sell the same product in the same market to the same customers. So they compete for the market share and customer loyalty. And there can be two kinds of competition. One is price competition and the other is non-price competition. So in price competition, the entities try to reduce or increase the price in order to basically the entities try to reduce the price compared to the competitors and thereby snatch away the customers of the competitors. As I already told you, Jio did that. It reduces its price, or it came up with it provided services at the very less cost, because of which the customers of the other companies were attracted towards Jio services. So this is price competition. And in non-price competition, you do not change your price, but you try to change your advertisement. You try to promote your product in the other ways. You may come up with new offering like buy one get one, or some kind of contest or something like that. So all that variety of things that you do are come under non-price competition. So whenever there is changes in your competitors' policies, the company also have to adjust your policies accordingly in order to ensure that your customer remain with your firm only. Now, public is also a part of external microenvironment, and according to Philip Kotler, public is a group of an actual or the potential interest. Public is a group which has the actual or the potential interest in or impact on the company's ability to achieve the objective. So these are those groups which have interest in your organization, and they also can impact the working of your organization. Now, all these groups include environmentalists. There are few entities who have formed an environmental group, and they check whether the activities of the companies are harmfully or negatively impacting the environment. And if yes, they file petition in the courts and ensure that the company changes its way of working. There can be media groups who make news of whatever company does. Women's association who sees to it that the working of the company is not impacting the rights of the women. Consumer protection group who ensure that the rights of consumers are protected. Citizens associations. So there are a variety of these pressure groups operating in public. These days, they are very powerful, and company have to observe the behavior of these groups in order to ensure that their working is according to the demand of these public groups. Now, we also have external macro environment. So macro environment comprises of all those factors which are beyond the control of any entity. And whenever these changes, the firm have to adjust. These the changes in macro environment produces sometimes opportunity and sometimes threats for the entity. Now, this comprises a variety of factors such as economic environment. So the economic environment includes all those factors which impact the economic working of any entity. This includes the factors such as different sectors of the economy: agriculture sector, industrial sector, and service sector, the infrastructure of the country, the basic economic philosophy on which the country is working, the stage of development of the country, such as developing, underdeveloped, or developed country, the trade cycle, that is boom, recession, depression, the national income, the level of per capita income, the money supply in the economy, the interest level, the price levels, the monetary and fiscal policy of the government. All these impact, not population. All these are the kind of the components of the economic environment. Now, there are three kinds of economies that work in practice. So there can be capitalist economy, there can be socialist economy, and there can be mixed economy. And India has adopted mixed economy pattern, as we all know. A capitalist economy is a kind of an economy where all the economic decisions are taken with an intention of earning profits. So profit is the sole motive in the capitalist economy. All the resources which are useful for production and sale are owned by the entity itself and not by the government. And the entity uses the resources in producing all those commodities which give them maximum profits. In socialist economy, all the important resources are owned by the government, and and in the important decisions are taken by the government, that is public sector. And the important motive, the main motive of socialist economy is social service and not profit maximization. In mixed economy, the public, that is government and private sector, work simultaneously, they coexist, and they ensure that both the objectives are satisfied, profit plus social objectives. Now, the variety of decisions in different economies are taken in different manner. Now, the next is political and legal environment. Now, political and legal environment comprises of three factors. One is political institutions, which comprises of various political parties, their term, their ideologies. Okay, the political institutions comprises of three, that is legislature, executive, and judiciary. So there are three kind of political institutions. One is legislature, then executive, then judiciary. So as we all know, legislature are those institutions which make laws for the country, which includes parliament and state legislature. And we have executive, which comprises of government entities, which help us in implementing the laws made by the legislature, and judiciary, which take decision whenever there is conflicts. So they resolve the conflict by giving decision according to the law. So these are these three entities which are working under political and legal environment. So there are variety of laws which are made in our country, and all these laws definitely impact the working of the organization. No organization can break the law and work that way, because that will come up with many legal consequences. So every organization have to work within the boundary of law. Variety of laws are there, such as law relating to production, packaging, law relating to protection of environment. There is ban on the advertisement of all those things which negatively impact the consumers, and there is there is advertisement of whenever there are certain product for whom if there is advertisement, so they should carry some statutory warning, such as you may have seen cigarette packaging. So in cigarette packet itself, it is written that it is harmful for health. So this is because there are laws who make it compulsory for the entities to do so. So the government make laws, and it is important for the entities to follow all those laws in order to ensure the smooth working. Technological environment. So today, as we know that technology is very fast changing, and there are innovations each day. The organization or the businessman has to keep a close track of all the technological changes that are going on. They have to adapt this on time. Whenever the organization come up with any new innovation, they have to ensure that they have proper patents in their name to ensure that they are not imitated by their competitors. The environment have to see that whenever there is opportunity in the environment, they should use their technology and come up with some new product and take maximum benefit of the opportunity. So this is all about your technological environment. Global environment or international environment. So as we know that these days after 1991, when the government opted for LPG policy, that is liberalization, privatization, and globalization, India has opened its borders, and today the environment is a borderless. Today the world in which we live is a borderless world. So there is no importance of the regional boundaries or national boundaries. The entities working at any place or any part of the world can sell and manufacture at any place wherein they find there is opportunity to do so. So this is importance of global organization, and because of this globalization, the entities have benefited because they get this opportunity to acquire raw material from any place in the world. They can sell to the customers residing at any part of the world, and thereby expanding their reach and increasing their profits level. But there is also threat of globalization because now they have to compete not only at the domestic level but also at the international level. So they have to work, they have to gear up, they are working, they have to enhance their skills because they have to face high level of competition. Also, there is one organization known as WTO, that is World Trade Organization, and India is part of World Trade Organization. It is the entity which makes the rules and regulations in order to ensure that there is free trade in the world. So whenever your country tries to put some limitations or restrictions on the free trade, WTO sees to it that all those rules and regulations are taken down and there is free trade in the world. Then we have socio-cultural environment. Now, socio-cultural environment is nothing but the social values. So see, every society has certain values on which they operate. Indian values are completely different from the Western world values, right? So all those social values are part of social environment. There are also certain expectations that any society has towards business environment. Today's society expect that a business does not pollute the environment. They provide them employment opportunities. Society expect that the business should work for the care of aged and old people. Society expect that the business work on the principle of free trade. They do not create monopoly and exploit customer, and they try to satisfy human wants. All these are expectation of society from the company. And if society expectations are understood and fulfilled by the business entity, the society supports and become loyal to the business organization. And if society thinks that a particular business organization is going against the values and the expectation, the society launch a particular kind of a march against the working of the entity. They launch the petitions in the courts and thereby ensure that the business closes down its operations. So that has happened in real life too. The entities which were polluting the environment have been closed down by the Supreme Court on petition of the society wherein those entities were operating. So that's the power of society today. So again, they are saying the same thing, that the values and beliefs, the norms and ethics of each and every society are different. The buying habits, the buying capacities, taste and preference of a society depends upon the cultural environment, and all these are different from one society to the another. So far as India is concerned, we know that majority of people in India do not eat beef. So if any new company comes up with a beef outlet, definitely there would be outrage, and the company will have to face the consequences. And also, white dress is not preferred in Hindu weddings, and it is so if any kind of business comes up with a theme of white dress, so that may not be acceptable by the Hindu residing in India. So that's all should be known by any business entity. If you are going into the new market, you should understand what are the social values, beliefs of a particular society. Then and then only you should launch your product over there. Else it would be complete flop if it is against the social and moral values of that society. Demography or demographic environment. Demography means population. So demography means population. So whenever you enter into a new market, you should understand, as a business entity, you should understand the demographic environment. You should understand the gender ratio. So what is the male female ratio in the society? What is the size of the population? What is the growth rate of the population? The life expectancy, how long the people in a particular geographic area reside or live. What is the urban rural distribution, and what is the technological skill, education level, the language of the labor force. So that all needs to be studied before entering into any market. So far as India and China are concerned, they are considered as a huge populated country. And you may know that many of the MNCs come into India because of the cheap labor available in the Indian market. India and China, because of huge labor available, use labor intensive technology instead of capital intensive technologies. This is done to get the benefit of cheap labor and also to give employment to the huge labor force. Natural environment and ecological environment are almost the same thing. So we know that nature or the mother nature provides us variety of the raw materials and energy which is used by the business entity to produce the goods and services. Now the natural environment is not same at each and every places. We see that the minerals and oil reserves are available at certain places, whereas there are certain places wherein these are not available at all. The water, the forest, the weather condition, the climatic conditions, all these are highly different and different places, and yet these all the natural resources are very important for any business entity. So we know that, the steel producing companies need coal to run the steel unit, and therefore they set up their steel industries near to the coal mines in order to ensure that their transportation cost is reduced. So the demand of the natural environment is going on increasing these days because of a large amount of population, but the people or the industries are not caring enough for the environment, and because of their working, the temperatures are rising each day. There is because of the pollution created by the business enterprises, um, the pollution that they are creating by dumping the chemical material in the water, and they are also polluting the air, which is affecting the ozone layer. There is damage to water, air, because of the industrial working. And if this continues, it is possible that we may not leave a very clear and clean environment for the future generation. So it is important for any business entity and also an individual to ensure that they fulfill their responsibility towards the environment. Government these days has also made certain laws to ensure that the entities are working according to the environmental norms. So it is important for any entity to keep to fulfill the social accountability to ensure that they use only the renewable resources and limit the use of non-renewable resources. They should ensure that if they are cutting a tree, they should also plant a tree. They should ensure that they should produce all those goods and services which do not pollute the environment to an extent, because if this continues, or the natural calamities such as floods, droughts, earthquake will continue, and this will ultimately impact your business entities. So it is important for you to protect the business environment for your own good and also for the future generations. Now we'll look at the internal environment. Now, as we know that internal environment is source of strength or weakness for the entity. Now, the internal environment comprises of all those factors which are to the certain extent controllable by the firm, so that it can be changed or modified according to the requirement in order to ensure that the organization is working with the improved efficiency. So you can change it to increase your efficiency. Now, various factors of the internal environment are: first is value system. Now, value system is nothing but all the ethical beliefs, the moral values which guide the working of any entity. These moral values impact the method you choose to attain your objectives. So if the organization have very high moral values, it will not go for shortcuts or wrongdoings to achieve its objectives. But there are certain organizations which lack any kind of moral values, and they may go for any kind of wrong things or wrong methods, illegal methods, in order to ensure the achievement of the objectives. But that kind of working will definitely not make organizations survive for long. So if you want to sustain your business for long term, you need to work according to the high level of ethical principles. Now, value systems of the organization determine the way the people in the organization behave towards the employees, towards the customer, and the society at large. The value system makes an important contribution to the success and prestige of any business organization. They have given example of J.R.D. Tata, who is founder of Tata Group, and as the head of the Tata Group, he was a person who was always morally guided. He had self-imposed moral obligation. He always tried to adopt just and fair means to control the business, to run the business. They always practiced the method wherein they run the business in a way which promote the interest of consumers, employees, shareholders, and society. So all these moral values were also incorporated in the Articles of Association of TISCO, which is one of the Tata Group company. Next, they have also given the example of Infosys, whose leaders have always worked upon the high moral principles. So it is written in their report that the corporate culture of the company is that they want to achieve their objectives in the environment of fairness, honesty, transparency, courtesy towards the customers, employees, vendors, and society at large. That's what the company aims to do. And for this, they were also awarded with National Governance Award in 1999. So the company, Infosys, is the company who won the first National Corporate Governance Award in 1999. Please remember this. Now, what are companies' mission and objectives? Missions and objective are the mission actually talks about what the company is doing at present, and this we already read in our previous chapter. So it basically defines the business domain, what the company is doing, in what direction the company is moving, what are the philosophy and policies that the company is following. Objectives of most of the organization is to achieve profit maximization. Even if it is not said, it is assumed that any organization works with a basic objective of achieving profit. The mission defines the overall purpose, or it gives the reason as to why the company is into existence and what kind of decisions and activities that the company is carrying on at present. Now, they have given the mission and vision of Reliance that you can read on your own. Mission, vision, and values of Reliance, you can read on your own. Now, the next thing, the next part of your internal environment is your organization structure. Organization structure is nothing but the division of authority and responsibility, how the authority and responsibility is divided amongst the different people working in the organization. So your organization structure, your board composition, the level of expertise and professionalism with which people are working in the organization influences the working and the decisions in the organization. So it is said that if the organization structure is proper, where everyone knows what their responsibility are, what their authority are, this will ensure that there is quick decision making in the organization. And also, if the board of directors, who are considered as the highest decision making authority in the organization, if they are efficient and if they are transparent in their working, and if they are working according to the highest moral principles, it is said that then and then only the organization will survive for long term. In India, it is said that number of independent directors in the board of directors should be large, because independent directors are someone who are not working under influence, and thereby they'll ensure that all the decisions are taken with utmost no biasness, right? Therefore, independent directors, the number amongst the number of directors in India, the number of independent directors is to be increased. The next point is culture. Now, culture is nothing but the way the work is done in the organization. So the style of working of your top level manager determines the internal work environment. The internal work environment or the culture of every organization is different. Now, there are some organizations wherein the internal working environment is very threatening, wherein the employees are only to follow the orders given by the top level management. They have simply no say in the decision making. All the decisions are taken by the top level managers. Middle and lower level managers only act as the implementing authority. If this is a kind of the environment that you have in your organization, then this will lead to lack of trust and confidence amongst the subordinate, and there would be no feeling of brotherhood or trust in the company. And if the organization culture or the working is open and participative, where every level of the management is called to give their suggestions and opinions while taking any decision, this will increase the level of confidence that the managers have in the subordinate. Subordinate will feel that they are valued in the organization. Such kind of open and participatory work culture will increase the efficiency and working of the subordinates. Then we have quality of human resources. So human resources are the living resources of the organization, and the skills that they possess, their capabilities, the attitudes, and the level of commitment of your employees can be the source of strength for any organization. And if your workforce is highly unskilled, they are not capable enough, and they do not have right kind of attitude towards working, this will be a kind of a weakness for an organization. And it would also be difficult for the top management to deal with such kind of human resources. So it is important that the human resources should be efficient. The company should invest money in training and development of your resources. All kind of problems of the employee should be resolved, so that right kind of attitude of the employees towards the company can be developed. Labor unions. These days, employee create labor unions and they collectively bargain with the managers for better wages and better working conditions. So labor form group, and on group basis, they enter into negotiations with the managers, because if the single worker go to the manager, definitely the manager won't listen. But if they go in a group by making union, the power of the group will ensure that the managers are accepting their demands. And sometimes labor unions come up with unreasonable demand, which can halt the working of the organization. So it is important that business organization tries to maintain smooth working, smooth relations or good relations with the labor union in order to ensure that the working of the business is not hampered. Physical resources and technological capabilities. Now, physical resources definitely includes all the physical equipments such as plants, equipment, and technological capability is the capability of the organization to make innovation, the R&D capability. So if you have a very unique plant equipments and you have high level of technological capability, this is a source of your competitive strength. This can give you edge over your competitors. By using these resources, you can increase the level of efficiency and reduce the cost. R&D capability help you to go with number of innovations. It can also help you to come up with new methods that can enhance the productivity of your workers. All this will ultimately give you benefits in long run. So all this is part of your internal environment.